Here is Greewhiz, and I am so excited about him. He just absolutely knocked it out of the park today. In his first ride out of the ring, we went out to the field, and not only did he have a great ride in the field, but we also introduced jumping for the first time over some logs and things. And God, he just couldn't have been better. He just really made my day today with this ride because, you can never predict what their initial reaction is going to be. I always caution myself that whatever their initial reaction is, well, if it's a good reaction, then obviously that bodes very well. But sometimes their first couple of times, approaching little jumps, they're really unsure. And I've learned that has no bearing on what's to come in their future, as long as you are slow and deliberate and you don't rush them and make them worried about things. But it's super exciting when a horse I think that this horse is really talented and awesome. But he has just quieted down so much since he got here that, when they're so quiet, it takes away from the movement a little bit because they don't have as much adrenaline going just because they're so mild, which is great. It makes them extremely, extremely amateur friendly. However, taking him out to the field, it just added a little bit of punch. It was just a little bit exciting, and got him a little more awake, and it was just the perfect amount of excitement to add because he remained totally rideable, super relaxed, but he was just a little bit excited and a little bit pepped up. And so honestly, what that makes me think is that, this is a horse that someone's going to have at home and he's going to be just so quiet. And then you're going to take him to a horse show or wherever, someplace new, do something new. And that little bit of excitement is just going to make him just perfect. And he might even be a horse that's even better off the property than he is on the property. Because I think that just a little bit of adrenaline will just really show what a cool mover he is and just how talented he is. And so this is the movement that I always knew that was in there, and I just finally got to show it today. And it was just cool because, he gave me this lovely movement and he jumped superbly also. But he did all of that without becoming anxious or worried at all. He felt happy and willing to do the job the whole time to me without any sort of edginess, which is, of course, that's what we want. That's like the holy grail is having the movement and jumping a 10 and doing all those things without any sort of anxiety or worry. So that was pretty cool today that he showed us that. So this is just our warm up. He was obviously moving absolutely lovely. Super rideable, really straight, really soft and round, just everything was clicking. You'll see here there's a little like rolled up fencing here on the ground we're about to go by right there. It's maybe a little hard to see in the video. And so every year we have a mallard couple, like wild ducks, come and build their nest here somewhere on the property. And then we have ducklings. And it always is one of my absolute favorite things that happens every year. And our mallard, our female mallard, decided that this year her nest should be out in the jump field. And we discovered this by me almost running her over with a horse a week or so ago because I had no idea, and she blends in so perfectly. And I'm looking up, I'm not looking down at the ground, and apparently the horse wasn't either. So we startled her off of her nest, but then we discovered where the nest was. We put like some fencing around it to try and make sure that other things couldn't get in, like my dogs or foxes or whatever. But she didn't like that. She got off the nest. So then a couple of hours later, we took the fencing off because obviously we want her to go on her nest. But I left it out there because it's my marker. So that's how I know where she is and to make sure that I give enough clearance that I don't upset her. And that's my mallard story. I think we're almost 2 weeks in that she's been sitting, and it takes 3 weeks until we have ducklings. So in another, 7, 8, 9 days, we should have baby ducklings, which I'm so excited about. It's the cutest thing ever. But that has nothing to do with Wiz, but it is exciting. So I'm a huge fan of walking over stuff. He was funny at this lug. I mean, I could tell that he was going to jump with a little bit of pizzazz because he was walking over some things pretty enthusiastically, but so brave. And what I really thought was so cool was that, when we started, he was over jumping a little bit because he was just jumping enthusiastically. It felt to me like he was just having fun. But what I loved was that even when he overjumped, even when he jumped up really big and enthusiastically, he never landed and, wanted to scoot or buck or literally no sense of that whatsoever. He can jump really big and then just land calmly and trot or canter away with no thought of any silliness. So that's pretty cool. And you'll notice that yes, I am totally grabbing mane to most of these because the last thing I want to do is catch them in the mouth. And when they're jumping up big like that over little tiny things, it's just hard to predict like that. So I'm just grabbing mane to make sure that I stay out of his face. I also purposely did not canter him before we started jumping over stuff because he tends to get pretty exhausted working in the canter. It's kind of funny. So I didn't want to zap too much energy out of him, especially because he was moving so nicely in the trot, which is wonderful. But obviously, that's more energy zapping when you're moving like that. So I just was trying to conserve him, and I figured we would do some cantering while we were jumping anyway. And also, if you want to see more video of this horse cantering, I have tons of cantering footage of him in his previous videos. So obviously, when they start jumping, their poll needs to come up and their nose needs to be out. So I don't expect him to be, quote unquote round, but I do expect them still to stay soft in their jaw and over their top line, which he absolutely did perfectly. He is so funny. He was really fun. I mean, this was a really, really fun ride. I definitely grabbed a bunch of mane to that one because he sprung up over it from the walk, so I knew from the trot he was definitely going to have a big old hop over that. And as cool as it is, and it makes a great picture when they're over jumping like that, I actually would like for him to start to understand that he doesn't actually need to. Like right there, actually, that was the first log where he jumped more economically, which is what we want. He needs to learn that he doesn't have to expend so much unnecessary energy. And that was much better at that one, too. So that's starting to click for him, which is very good. It didn't actually take that much, just a handful of jumps before he realized that he could dial it back a little bit. So here I felt like a good opportunity to come in the canter, which he was quite good about, and it's hard to tell from behind, but he wiggled just a little bit to the left, and then there was a bit of a chip in, but it was great. He was fantastic, super with his footwork. He's so funny. So obviously, the two priorities here are that I want him to be straight and I want myself to be stable. So I'm just trying really hard to stay out of his way, keep my position behind him, so to speak, so that he has plenty of room to make whatever choice he wants to make without feeling like the rider is interfering or throwing their weight around. And of course, I'm not perfect at this. There's certainly times when I make mistakes. Through this whole set, and obviously this is totally unedited. His rhythm never changes. He stays exactly the same the entire time. Even when he over jumps, it never changes the rhythm that he's working at. That was super cute. And sometimes he lands in the canter, sometimes he lands in the trot. He tends to land in the canter when he jumps economically and land in the trot when he overjumps, because then he sort of has the tendency to land in a little bit of a heap on the other side, and then he has to regroup, so it's easier to land trotting when he overjumps. At this point, he didn't overjump those first couple in the line, but at this point I think he's getting a little bit tired. And so here I had it in my mind that maybe we would canter this log here a couple of times and see if we could come in the canter, but he was telling me here that he's starting to feel tired. So it felt like a good place to stop. Just an absolute superstar. And then the last thing here is, I apologize, it's cell phone footage because I was by myself in the barn when I was tacking him up, but just him on cross ties, what he's like in the barn, which is that he's pretty wonderful.